Hello and welcome to This and That. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Hello.
Hello, and this is where we talk all things figure skating, good, bad, and ugly. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe below and ring that bell for notifications. But there is news that we have to start out on a little bit more of a serious note.
You did say ugly. You did say ugly in that intro.
Yeah, and unfortunately it was intentional. I knew that something was coming. I didn't know that this particular announcement was coming. I don't think it's a secret that I do talk with Christine Brennan. I knew she had been working on something, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I knew something was up in the back of my mind, but I didn't know this was coming. There's been a lot of other speculation about whether or not specific victims of John Coughlin, or alleged victims, would be coming forward, and who that would be, and whether they would be coming together in numbers, and specifically like that. So I had a feeling that something might come at some point. I didn't know anything about Ashley, and that is one thing that I was surprised like everyone else. We all were, and disheartened to hear. But I did, we can start with this, is that Ashley did come out with a statement and a video. I know that she filmed it on Tuesday with USA Today. She went down and visited Christine. Christine picked her up, and then they went and filmed this. And it's clear that this was a very planned statement. And what I mean by that is that there was a lot of time spent crafting it, and I think that that was actually very good. I think that... Yeah,
and by crafting, you mean the right way to word things, yes. All that sort of stuff. Yeah.
It touched on a lot of points that I think are stuff that we've mentioned before, but to have someone of Ashley's stature say it, and say it so eloquently and powerfully, was really well done and necessary, I think, in this.
Important, I agree.
Yeah, because I also believe that Ashley preemptively knew a lot of the backlash that she was going to be getting. And there's been a lot of talk about the timing, and why is it now, and is it because she has an event coming up? And we do know that Ashley did tell the USFS in February. That's when they were notified. So in terms of her decision to publicly say it, I think that's different than telling enforcement people.
And quite frankly, it's not up to anyone else to determine anyone else's schedule on how they share this information and when.
This is something that we hear constantly, and I think people have a really hard time with sexual assault in general, is that it happens and that it's not just immediately reported. And that's unfortunately one of the common occurrences that happens with assault. But it's also because of the culture. There is so much shame. There is so much self-blame, victim blame, everything, and everyone wants to jump on and overpower, and I think you can see why, but I think, more power to Ashley for coming forward. I don't think
Ashley brought up sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Ashley brought up an interesting point where for a while, because it may not have been as dramatic as other people's experiences, you underplay. Well, I guess it was only quasi this, or my story wasn't as dramatic perhaps as someone else's, so you feel you're not the one who's supposed to come forward. Someone with an even more horrifying experience is supposed to come forward. And it seems like she also came to terms with that this happened to her and it was an assault and she should say something.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of downplaying of it.
Yeah, and you also don't know if when you're reporting, you're also giving credence to things that happened, right? So maybe I don't feel personally at this point in time, like when it happened, I didn't say anything, and I brushed it under the rug, right? But maybe something else more dramatic happens to someone else. And then, of course, when John committed suicide, and so many other victims came forward, or were public, or there was such outcry, someone like Ashley also contacted to give credence about this story and what the truth was, to get to the bottom of it. And, I think that that's important too. And you have time to reflect on the culture that you were a part of. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's also something good coming out of it. The reaction of the skating community, and we've never really talked about it, and I've been asked to talk about it to different publications, and I've always waited, right? Because I feel like I have a lot of thoughts, but they aren't, I don't want to be the story, right? Like, that, it's not the story. Like, what I observed in the backlash that I received and Christine received, unfortunately, I believe is indicative of a larger problem in skating, and that's my personal view. And my personal view is that this is cultural, and that, yes there are perpetrators and that did bad things, and they're also a product of the system, right? Like it didn't happen in a vacuum. And in some ways, I think that whether or not someone did or didn't do things and things that people may have done, they're also a product of a system themselves. And you don't, like, where did it start? Where is the root cause? And what causes all of this? And I think these are definite things, and they also do crimes. And you have to address both things, right? And you have to. And
I'm going to put a pin in it here because it's interesting. Around the same time, you know, there's a lot going on in the opera world right now, where we're unearthing sleazy conductors that have taken advantage of singers and all this sort of stuff. The biggest story being the conductor at the Met, James Levine, for many years, and that he was abusing young boys, young artists, all this sort of stuff. And it was interesting because when that story came out, the new management at the Met could not separate themselves from it more quickly.
Yeah.
They condemned that behavior immediately. They said, we may not know what happened, but we know we don't stand for any of that. We are completely apart from that, and we take great strides in who we are now to never let something like that happen again.
Yeah.
And it kind of helped modernize that institution. And even though there may be arguments about what may or may not have been covered up previously, then moving forward, it was such a strong statement of not acceptable. Here's what we're doing to try to push us into this modern movement. And it seems like when the skating world was confronted with a similar issue, they dug their heels in instead of moved forward.
And there's a timing situation, right? They reacted as horribly as they could have in the worst possible way, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like a textbook wrong.
Right, and it's so amazing because we're on the heels of the Me Too movement. We are on the heels of USA Gymnastics and Larry Nassar. Now, I would say that USA Gymnastics would be a peer of US Figure Skating. They're both nationally governed organizations, and they've both been organizations that have experienced prominence and have experienced hard times, right? And though gymnastics was bringing in more money, perhaps, and more sponsors in recent years, they had periods where they were struggling, right? And skating had the heyday. We're talking about 2003, and it's fallen. So they might not have been right on the par of each other right at the moment,
right?
But they're very similar. And I've been consistent about this since we started talking about Larry Nassar, as I've always said that this is going to come to skating. This is going to come to skating. And I don't understand, if you are US figure skating, how you did not immediately call a task force privately, and look
and flush out everything and everyone you needed to.
Potential risk, right? I work for an insurance company. We have something called, there's a risk department, that's looking at potential risk in insurance, our own risk, outside risk, how a company, like an organization like US Figure Skating didn't do that, to me is so irresponsible. Because yes, the one thing about gymnastics is that there was one, and it's not one person because there was a culture that allowed it to happen, but there was one doctor who was so prevalent with his abuse, but he also abused skaters as well. And if skating wasn't looking into that, and the fact that he is so based in the Michigan area, and that there was overlap, and he was sent athletes from all sports. And you almost can't get defensive. And almost it was as if US Figure Skating as an organization got defensive and dug in their heels and didn't know how to do it. Some of the facts we do know. We have heard, and I don't know how public some of this is, but allegedly the complaint that initially resulted in John getting a restriction came in 2017. So they would have had a year to make a decision, to be notified, and to start dealing with things. And we don't know what their initial response is. And that's something that I think is going to be really important to know over time, because I don't want to get into whether or not I think anyone is innocent or guilty, and that's not the purpose of even this discussion, but I think that there's something about the culture at large. And I think that you start to have to look into chaperones. You have to start looking into what happens on these trips. And these are skaters that are, in some ways, they're world travelers, and in other, they're sheltered kids who don't even have a high school experience. But then they're also surrounded by adults, and then they're also groomed to be people pleasers. And fortunately, there's a huge point of vulnerability that really needs to be addressed. And And unfortunately, parents also get so caught up in this situation and overlook things. And unfortunately, I believe that all of the different types of abuse tend to go together, right? There's eating disorder abuse where you're like, well, if someone's not eating, can you strictly blame the coach? I mean, where is the parent in that situation? And unfortunately, that is also correct. There is an element of the parents looking in, but that it doesn't excuse the coach who did this or the organization who overlooked it, right? Like everyone has their own culpability rather than just a single person to blame, right? And I think that that's also an important thing because I believe that skating has a culture of silence, and in that culture of silence is a culture of reluctant acceptance, where people reluctantly grow up in a system where they accept that certain things happen. Young girls date older pair guys, coaches date students, and you shut your mouth because you don't want to be a troublemaker, basically, like Ashley said.
Well, and
it can
it's tricky. Yeah. I mean, again, just to bring it back to my own personal experience with opera, I was working with James Levine, and we were doing a show together, and there was like a group dinner, and you saw him going in on some like 16-year-old mandolin player.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and you see this kind of thing, you don't know where this is going, but you know the vibe is inappropriate. And I panicked immediately as I saw it happening, and I looked to the people around me who were also Met coaches, and they were like, just ignore it. And it made me ill. I didn't know what to do, but it is that, like, don't cause a problem.
Yeah.
He's above you. And if you cause a problem here, you're actually going to mess up something else. It's not worth it.
And I don't know
of course it's worth it.
I don't know if opera is the same way, but unfortunately in skating, because there's competitive aspect and there is rankings, right? There becomes a system where how everyone perceives and looks at a skater depends on the value of their results and not on them as a human being, right? Like skaters become in awe of the more successful one, coaches do. And unfortunately, I think what really tipped the scales in the Larry Nassar cases that you had Olympic champions come forward and they were high profile, and then people were more inclined to believe them. And I think
and this is the case with Ashley. She is the highest profile athlete, and unfortunately now it seems
than John. And unfortunately,
more people are going to believe her than maybe believed other people that have come forward.
I mean, people were terrible to Bridget Namioka. She was getting bots on her page saying, "You're never going to go to the Olympics." She's been retired for 12 years. But the fact that someone is like, you're jealous and bitter and that you're jealous of him, it's really upsetting. And, I believe that there is a novel to be written, not a novel, but like a book to be written about each individual person, situation, things that are contributory to it that really needs to be looked after. The fact that most pair boys have their entire training paid for. They get gifts from parents. Often the girl is in a vulnerable position where it's felt that the boy could leave you. I mean, think of how many female skaters we have seen in Colorado that get ditched and the boy stays with the coach, right? Like that
often who is less talented.
Right.
But they create this thing that the girl needs him.
Scarcity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect of it. And I've even seen personally creepy things happen. I've seen other coaches or known that someone was involved with someone when they were underage and someone is of age. Just in my own rinks that I've been at, right? And I think people at different places handle things differently, but there's a situation like who is the adult, right? And even when I was in my early 20s, there is a president of a skating club who's married with a wife. He made sexually inappropriate comments to me, where it would be someone like tapping you in the balls or someone like saying that they wanted to do something to you sexually or whatever. And with, me, like I am the person in my 20s, I was in a harder position vulnerably, but I'm also the kind of person who I had been to college, had grown up, and
had an experience outside of that.
And wasn't going to just take that, right? Like I would then become standoffish. But there are also positions where this person acted similarly to other peers of mine. And I know this, where they invited them to coach them at maybe an adult nationals event and then were naked the entire trip in the hotel room, right? And it becomes uncomfortable, right? But it's pervasive, like this kind of behavior. And there you have mixing of sexual orientations and you have mixing of things. There's another element to skating because of the fact that you have two people performing things together that becomes different kinds of relationships. And it's so, and the different age ranges in the rink. And I think one of the things that Ashley said really eloquently was about how your status puts you in a certain social circle, right? And people were like, well, how did Adam not know about Ashley? Well, if you look at it, Ashley was a world team member at the time of the incident. Adam was a junior world team member. Ashley's in a whole other circle of people. Yes, they're the same age, but she's a higher status, right? And people also do treat you differently when you're a world team member versus you're a junior world team member. Like, those are two very different things. You're a female world team member. That's like the highest, right, rank in skating, if you're not like a medalist of some sort. So you have to look at that. Then you look at the fact that there were people in their 20s that are partying with kids that are teenagers. Now, that's something that wouldn't usually happen in high school. I don't know about you, but I wasn't going to any, even in the summer, if someone was in their 20s, partying with someone that's in 17, even when we were in
there's
college,
no reason that those social circles would be mixed so much in other fields.
Like, I mean, my sister's only 2 years older, and I didn't go to many parties with her friends. That would even be considered a little bit
inappropriate.
Weird. Yeah, like I was in marching band where like seniors and freshmen became involved, and that was a little weird, right? But everyone was of a certain age, mostly, right? But there were degrees of that. This is a weird situation where this becomes almost a norm. The fact that there's people that are potentially in their 20s inviting someone that's 17 over to their house with drinking, and that's immediately not like red flags. Aren't you weird to the person who's older, that's accepted as a norm?
Firm lines need to be drawn up here. And situations can arise in which something horrible like this could happen. But it's not to blame anyone who was in that situation. If everyone was in that situation, there should have been procedural things. There should have been such an idea that we would never even enter that situation.
And it's such a shame
for
that
anyone,
Ice Network,
for anyone involved.
It's such a shame that Ice Network isn't around, because you can cross-check a lot of these things. But one thing I did want to just point out is that one thing that might be confusing to people about the story, and I don't know, I haven't read it, comments, but I did initial brain check. So I'm thinking if I am trying to verify this, someone else will. Champs Camp used to be held in June, and it used to be all off ice. The fact of the program monitoring is something that came later on. So I don't know if everyone remembers, but Johnny Weir had complained about having to go to Champs Camp a couple times. I think it was even shown on his reality show, where he had to go and sit in off-ice seminars and was really annoyed about it, that he could have been on vacation or earning money in shows. And that's what that was. That would be a June Champs Camp. They used to have sports psychology and all the other stuff, and it used to be different. It changed over the years, and it was held at a different time. So it does check out the fact that there was an event that happened in June 2008 in Colorado Springs. Then I'm even, and there's often things people are like, well, he stopped. Ashley claims that John stopped when she said something. That doesn't change the fact that, she's not of the age of consent. Also, you are in a bed, you are sleeping, and someone is trying to force you. She said that he groped her, inappropriately. No one has, the right to do that if you do not give consent. And It's like so many levels, of red flags there that should be. I was really disturbed, I don't know, you were, by comments by Nina Edmonds that were Ashley's competitor's mother, who's publicly posting on Facebook that
as a vigilante a little bit.
A vigilante that girls are to blame. And unfortunately there were a couple, there was also another Russian coach that also made a remark about this. And I don't want to,
which breaks my heart for her in a way, if I'm going uber empathetic, because I'm like, what culture have you grown up in? What have you experienced?
Yeah.
That you feel that the girls are just supposed to be quiet about it.
Yeah, and I feel for Paulina in a sense too, that I don't want her to be blamed for her mother's comments at the same time, because she's not responsible for...
They're two totally different people, yeah.
But at the same time, when she's saying that she would never allow her daughter and never to go to a party like this, at the same time, Paulina has posted photos of going to parties with red Solo cups when she was underage. I mean, I don't know what was in that cup. I can't verify, but I can imagine. I don't know. She had a private Instagram. People used to post things all the time when she was going to college. Skaters would pass that around like candy.
And normal. You're in college.
You're in college. I did it too in college.
And it doesn't mean that then you're supposed to just take whatever comes to you at in that moment. That's utterly
I had friends that were raped at frat parties, and everyone was going to frat parties. And yes, were they drinking underage? Absolutely. Was I drinking?
But was it their fault that
was
they
it their fault?
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
No. So, and that's another whole thing there. I read a lot of articles too in the last couple of months about because Christine Blasey Ford and a lot of this, why do people want to blame the victim? And there are different theories about this, right? And one article in Psychology Today was really interesting where they said that we all want to believe that the world is a safe place. And when you start to bring in a perpetrator who looks innocent or who seems so nice or potential, we all want to look at, what did the person do to put them at risk and almost blame them for it because it makes us feel safer. And it is true that there are
because this wouldn't normally happen. They must have done something that made something strange.
Yes. And there are also aspects of, yes, you can be in a more risky situation. It still doesn't mean that something deserves to happen to you. Those are two independent things. At the end of the day, a crime is still a crime.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of how can we prevent people from being caught instead of how can we prevent this kind of situation from ever happening? Even, and now I'm not trying to veer politically, but, even in the Brett Kavanaugh situation when a lot of people were like, think about your sons.
Yeah.
And you're like, does anyone want to think about their daughters? I don't it seems, yes, there's a problem and it should stop, but the problem isn't people reporting things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there are things that you do need to talk to your kids about. And unfortunately, it is a scary world and things can happen. I think skating is really disturbing.
Especially because of exactly what you're saying. This close proximity you would never have with these kinds of age gaps.
Yeah. And there are reasons why different alleged victims of John haven't come forward, even ones that were of the three that were at Safe Sport at the time that got him the interim suspension, right? Ashley was not one of them. We do know that. At the time, also, people from Colorado, a lot of them were responding to one victim in particular, and there was a lot of slut-shaming of that one victim, and again, being like, this is what brought it on, rather than that there's no hunter. There also seems to be an element of frat culture. John's best friend's mother spoke to the New York Times and equated it
and
to
said, "Oh, don't worry,
prom,
it's just prom night activity,"
which is also disturbing, and also why parents freak out and try to warn their kids about drinking at prom and going down, and why parents stay up at night in these kinds of situations. And that friend is now facing potential allegations as well, because someone else came out. Melissa Bulanhagui spoke out. There are people that are trying to speak down to her because of what she now does for a living. And also,
at one point, you can't just blame anyone who is a victim.
It makes people feel safer, right? Or it tries to discredit them. And
tirelessly, we know that there are some people that anyone who says anything happened, they're ready to attack their character.
But
and
how many people do you think that work in adult entertainment have had years and years of trauma happen to them?
And this is how they cope. And this is how this is played out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they should have to endure.
And I know that Melissa was speaking, when she was typing and some stuff cut out, and I actually spoke to her on the phone that night. We were filming something, and after we were done, I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years. I saw her in Colorado when Jenny and I were out there. She's from the Delaware area. I had known her, back in the day. And I did speak to her, and I think that, her story may come out in other venues in the future, whether or not that's her decision to tell the story the way she wants it. What I will say is that speaking to her is that there was a cultural aspect to this, where there was normative behavior going on that makes you believe of who's the adult in the room, who's policing this to make sure that it's not happening. If coaches aren't because they're worried about having a successful pair or overlooking and not wanting to ruffle feathers, because there is a strong belief of retaliation in the figure skating world, about this kind of thing happening, and the fact that people know so many. I mean, I was talking to one skater who grew up in this culture that's like, well, yes, they may be guilty, but then why are they being singled out and not others? And it's like, well, there may be a lot of
That's not the point. Everyone, it should just be, you know.
And this is a lovely person, and and this is their own personal.
But they're
journey.
groomed, Linda Frediani. They're groomed to think that this is normal behavior. So why now? Why this person? Why is this a big deal and not all these other things? And it's like, well, they're all big deal. All of it is horrible. No one should endure any of it.
All of it is horrible, and you know, you're a product of your system. And I think that is the really important thing there.
All these people saying, well, we're going to be afraid now to be alone in the car with the skater. Good.
And did
you shouldn't be alone in the car
release a statement preemptively? They had a quote in the article, and then they put an official statement. They knew that this was coming since February, right? Did they only put out a statement because it was Ashley Wagner, someone famous? Like, think about that. And think about how disturbing that is. Ashley is a great skater. But is her worth as a human being worth more than someone else's as a human being? Right?
Because she has a world medal. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And unfortunately, people were more sympathetic. When we posted that link, there were less people writing nasty comments to us privately and publicly because she was a champion, and that's the reality of the situation. And they go, oh my God, not Ashley.
Right. It's now someone credible. Yes. Now someone credible who's not looking to gain fame has done
it. People have accused her of that as well. Look, people are getting a couple $1,000s max to be in this Aurora Games. They're not. This is not
everybody stop. Everybody stop.
And we know that she did speak at the Detroit Pair Camp on Wednesday. So she's putting her money where her mouth is. And she is speaking out about this. She didn't have to go to U.S. figure skating about this. She could have gone immediately to the press. She didn't have to try to work on safeguards. But I have a lot of questions. I think Champs Camp is coming up. I don't know. You've been to bars at Nationals. I've been to bars at Nationals. How many parents, coaches, and athletes do you see intermingling coaching together? And then how many private parties are going on in hotel rooms? And how many private parties are going, like skaters are throwing, that people of all mixed ages are going to with tons
all
of
at the same hotel, all in the same bar,
We knew there was one former skater, who threw a party last year, and there are people of different ages going there, and we hear about all sorts of... And it's going to happen, but you need to be, I think, aware of it. There have been historical cases where really public things have happened. And then there's also a situation where someone who may have reported something may also have engaged in engage in behavior themselves, and that becomes a really conflicting area about who goes about this. And also, what's sickening, and why I want to structure this culture, is that I've been getting tons of messages about another situation going on, in another state that's been going on, and cover-ups going on involving people that we know.
It is the tip of the iceberg. It is the tip of the iceberg, and it doesn't mean that we should ignore this or wonder why it's not happening or why we're not talking about these other situations that we've been hearing about. But at the end of the day, we need to just rip this wide open and just put a stop to it so that there's such an awareness about it that it can't possibly happen moving forward. There have to be such firm lines drawn in the sand on this. And that's really their job. USFS needs to do this.
You have Craig Morizzi, who's suing U.S. figure skating, whose wife is the agent for John Coughlin. He also was the skating director at a place where someone works who married someone on their 18th birthday. And there have been tons of allegations about over the years. And then Nikolai goes off to the rink in Connecticut where Bob Young was banned for, and where another coach has gone through safe sport things in the last year. And there are Bob Young's initial reporting victims are still working on the staff there. I mean, it is so cultural and endemic, and it just makes you wonder, is anyone really policing this? And I think you have to look at an article that came out in Gymnastics. Now, I know Anna Lee a bit, and there were things that came out in that article. None of us are there to verify, but the way that people were talking about athletes, the way people were talking about weight, the way people were behaving, that kind of stuff happens in skating. We hear it all the time. And the fact that someone who's beaten down about their weight, about their ability, about injuries, could then be susceptible to...
Of course.
Of course, right? And this is happening, and it's all happening together, and it's part of the culture, and I think that, unfortunately, it's something that both sports need to look at for their survival, because these articles aren't going to go away. Right.
They could be such frontier bravers. And in another way, again, I'm sorry to keep taking it away from sport and putting it into music, but that's just how I can identify with it. I went to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, and an article came out last week, huge article on the Philadelphia Inquirer, that there was some young teenager. They take very young people there. Like when I was in grad school there in my 20s, there were also these weird phenom pianists who are like 12 or violinists who are 8, you know. And there was a teacher there. I believe it was violin, although it might have been piano, but I'm pretty sure it was violin maybe. And this teacher was gross. And the institution at the time in the 80s said, don't cause a problem. You're not going to have a career. You're going to be a troublemaker. And now she's coming out with all of this stuff. And the institute made a huge misstep when it sent out an all Curtis email. And I was teaching there at the time. And it said, don't talk to anyone about this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't silence this. It's not, you cannot control this narrative. You have to propel it forward. Now, having taught there, I had to go through 8 million hours of Chapter 9 or Title 9, whatever it is. All of these sorts of videos and scenarios. Like, I find it hard to believe that this is happening in skating. And sure enough, like we were saying in the Kavanaugh, what about your sons? And no one was saying, what about your daughters? USFS, all of those coaches band together immediately in order to form change, reform, and organization to protect coaches, not to protect skaters. That was their knee-jerk reaction. Their whatever that, who...
There's a former guest that's been on TSL that I am personally furious at over something, who doesn't even know it, right? Because of a situation involving this and things that I've learned, right?
But that coaching organization, what was, it's the thing one of the Santee brothers ran. They immediately clamped down. Yeah, PSA, they immediately clamped down.
Because this is everyone they've known. Think about how Scott Hamilton defended Gordy McKellen. And like that situation, what happened there?
Well, Don Laws.
Don Laws. And that Don Laws, he was coaching until the end, right? And there were tons of accusations there. And Don Laws coached Richard Callahan. If you start drawing the map, you know, like...
Or even, now we were talking about, you know...
There was one person that had coached next to Callahan that was sending me tons of information about all of these people, what was going on with Callahan. And then Coughlin was someone that they had worked with. And then when that happened, all of a sudden they clamped down, and was like, no, this couldn't be true. Right. And they don't want to know, but then they're also like, what did they not see? And then what did they see in other things that they may have tried to report? There's so many conflicting things where inherently good people are put in really difficult situations and have to question so many people that they've worked with their entire lives. There was a skater, Daniel Durant, who had passed away, and there were allegations that he had a coach of predation in that situation, you know, and that was known by everyone, right? And then you think about, you know, he passed away, and then they go on to have other struggles, and you think about like the different vulnerabilities that these people have. So, you know, and it happens in so many different things. Unfortunately, skating is rife with the opportunity for it. But I you know, I have a lot of curiosity about who's really chaperoning these kids when they're on these trips. What is the violation of the team? What is the role of the team leader? Are there going to have to be hired chaperones? There may have to be hired chaperones legally, because you're going to a junior Grand Prix or a senior.
People outside of the experience. People not a parent, not a coach,
think about all the
not
coaches
an assistant.
Who have not reported. You know, talking to different skaters. There was a skater Jenny was on the junior Grand Prix with who was dating their coach, and then that coach wound up getting banned, right? But the skaters all knew it, and they were just told by their parents to kind of stick away.
Dave, we literally just did a Patreon episode from the 95 World Professional Championships, and we're talking about Zagitova and Novotny.
Yeah.
12-year age difference, and you knew they were skating together a long time, since she was very young. And romantically involved almost that entire time. And you're like, what on earth is happening here? It's ridiculous.
You know, there are a lot of people that can come forward about a lot of things. And it's so widespread. And even, like, one of the reasons I wish Ice Network was still around is that I believe, and I at least have a memory of, them writing about skaters dating for Valentine's Day posts. And I believe that some of those skaters were underage and that was written about as normal. That someone didn't catch it.
Yeah.
and one of those Sarah and Drew articles. I would love to go back and revisit.
Yeah.
Because it was known that certain pair skaters were dating people underage, and it was public.
Yeah.
It wasn't
and
rumor.
But it has to be taught and reinforced that it's a no-go. It's a no-go.
But is that also part of the equation for having to skate with a pair boy sometimes, that you do wind up dating them? Is that the price of admission sometimes? And with certain skaters, it seems like it could be.
Yeah.
That should be a red flag to people.
Right.
You know, to parents. But do parents become so caught up in the dream and the money and the attention and everything that happens? So we could talk about it for hours, but I think that it's something that is not going away. And
I think in some ways it's only just begun. Because as you say, even in this particular instance, there are 2 former partners we have yet to hear from in John's situation.
And one of them deleted her Instagram.
There's something to be said, and we don't know what it is, and it may come at some point. Yeah.
And also, who attended that funeral, who didn't? You know, these are things that you all have to look at and why. And again,
this is just an isolated part of a massive epidemic.
Massive
epidemic. Yeah.
It's massive. It's pervasive. People are such products of it that they can't see straight.
And you've got to uproot the entire thing in order to move forward.
Yeah. And then you look at, let's talk. Oh God, Jonathan, we need to transition.
Segueing seamlessly into, I'm on Worst Cooks in America tonight, Dave.
Yes.
Okay, how's that? Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, I know. We're gonna talk about the Pan Am Games and gymnastics, who's now trying to move forward, and I think gymnastics is struggling to find its footing and its medium, and how do you push for success and then also not find abuse, not be abusive. And I think that's a big thing that all of these look, because you have a coach to push you, right? And then, but then when is a coach also making bad decisions for things that are entirely selective, and then you have coaches that seem like PR people. I mean, Tom Forrester posts statuses every day about not being sure of his decisions and being nervous about them and making excuses, and you're like, wait, you want to teach athletes to not make excuses, to go out there and fight, to go out there and be prepared,
lead by example,
and be accountable. You don't want to dissuade their injuries. You want to empower, but you also don't want to give people an out, right? Because so much of this is psychological. And I think that this is a thing where it's a big, and people think that just if you don't think that the current coordinator is doing his best job, that means that you support abuse. And those are very different things. But I think that allowing someone to say, well, the arena is cold, and we had long start times, and we had this, and that's every competitor in the event is
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, the same thing when they used to complain about the ice. You know what I mean? I will forever remember 96. Is that Birmingham? When they were all complaining about the peanut butter ice or whatever on one end, and it was like, but everyone's competing on the same ice.
Yes.
And
that's true. Like, it doesn't mean the ice is good, but everyone is
doing the best they can, and you can too. I mean, yeah.
So, and it also is true that the ice might have been terrible. So
it did look pretty terrible at that event.
But some people thrive on that. I remember Scott Hamilton writing in his book that Paul Wiley thrived on bad ice. For some reason, everyone would struggle, and Paul would have the best nights of his life.
Okay.
But maybe it focused him. Maybe it made it a little more present.
Shakes you out of your nerves for a second, yeah.
But there is kind of a situation where teams are selected in gymnastics, and it's for strategy. And there's points, and then there's ability, and then there's results, and you start to have to think. And one of the things that the Karolyis were usually pretty good at, despite tons of allegations of abuse, they obviously were also successful for reasons that were separate from abuse.
Right.
They were good things that they did beyond just being abusive and overtraining and being nasty. And one of the things is Marta happened to be incredibly intuitive about who to put in. And that was something that she did well. I think that one thing is that what do you do when you select athletes for a team and you have Riley McCusker, right? And Riley McCusker is a very talented, gorgeous gymnast that I love watching. But when you're picking someone for Worlds and Olympics and you're trying to win gold, and you have these systems and you have to pick people that you can rely on to hit, and you have 20 options, do you pick someone that has a low level of consistency hitting, especially their best events? We saw that she easily could have won the all-around. She messed up on her best event. Then she could have won again, and then messed up on floor, went out of bounds multiple times, actually 2 days, but had done so much better in the team event. It's like the talent and the coaching is perhaps there, but psychologically cannot get across that hurdle. And you can do everything you can to try to empower this person. But is this the person to bet on?
And in a stage, like, you'll have to explain how you find some parallels between skating and gymnastics for me. Because, like, I was watching Riley on the bars.
Yeah.
And, I don't know exactly what I'm seeing, but I know when it's good. Yes. I was like, oh, my gosh. Like,
stunning talent, right?
This is a moment, you know. But I'm intrigued if you buckle under pressure at a Pan Am Games. Is it the same thing where we have seen certain skaters falter at a lesser event, but then rise to the occasion in the big event? Or is that person going to kind of be a miss the whole time? Like with a Karen Chen, who we will get to with her Philadelphia skate, is she going to pull out all the stops and randomly magically get fourth at Worlds one time just when you need her to the most? Or is she going to go to the Olympics and kind of just phone it in? I don't know.
Where Riley had made a mistake in prelims and then hit in finals. Now, finals is when it really counts. However, it could easily flip, right? If someone is going to mess up on the first day and then adjust in the second and then subsequently make these kinds of mistakes, you don't know when the pressure is going to get to them and when it's not, when there's a pattern of problems. And when you have other people, I'm not saying to write Riley off, but I'm saying that they should also be exploring other options and other people to develop and give opportunities.
But then it was interesting. We were talking with Jenny earlier during the 2003 Nationals recap about how sometimes the narrative can be created for you. Like, so you were saying about, you'll have to remind me, who went out maybe a little too soon and then suddenly started getting in their head that this was an inconsistent competitor when that may not have been the case.
This was
Riley. Okay. That it starts to create this narrative that may not even be the case.
You know, that was happening with Sasha Cohen. I think there was a history that she wasn't hitting. I don't think that the media helped. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, right.
All the fixation, but at the same time, the reporters are also reporting on what they see. So it starts to become an echo chamber and a self-fulfilling prophecy. It also happened to Vanessa Adler, and in some respects, I think it started to happen to Gracie, but I think that also that was something that people were picking up on. But it started to magnify, and I think Michelle talked about it being a broken record and how you have to stop it. I'll be curious to see, because there's a gymnast, Sunisa Lee, who we'll see probably next week at the U.S. Championships. Every bit probably as talented as Riley, hasn't found maybe the same consistency yet, but I think that's someone you have to look at as you go to championships, the selection camp, and really start to weigh, can Riley be trusted to hit under pressure at this moment, right? Can that improve? Can it not improve?
Well, and that's the other thing. Yeah. And if you set out to improve it, is that improvement that needs to be done in mental preparation training that kind of happens? Or is that keep going, keep doing it as much as possible?
I think it's everything. And I don't think there's necessarily a clear answer for each person. And I think that they're trying, but at the same time, some of these mistakes. I mean, my thing is Kara Eker is a beautiful beam worker. Right, and she is.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
I don't think now. You have to tell me, because I don't keep up with it. Obviously, I don't think I've ever seen a more beautiful beam routine. There was so. When we talk about this in skating, when someone's like on or in their technical pocket, you know they're just going to hit, and you can just sit back and actually enjoy it. Yeah. I don't often enjoy the beam in the same way some people say, the super layman. Yeah. I don't like to watch them fall in skating. Yeah. For me, that was always beam because it's too there's something so comfortable,
it's
so
fluid,
self-assured.
it moves. It's like the old routines that don't have all these stops and pauses and starts. She moves from one skill to another. It's rhythm, it's timing, it's the finesse.
And I hate when they stop on that bar and they're like, pose, pose, pose. And then for no reason and keep going. But everything she did was so organic and elegant that I was like, well, geez Louise, how is she doing
and she
this?
has that Armenian coach, Armene, that we talked about, and her male coach is Alfang, where the gymnast had broken necks and done. I mean, this is, again, you talk about questionable things in sports.
Right.
Yeah. But they're also being incredibly successful right now. And what do you do? And this wife also seems to be an incredibly skilled technician about many things. And it doesn't, and these allegations of abuse also don't stop people from going, because oftentimes these are the same people that have so much success, and it just becomes. Think about how many people keep getting sent to Richard Callahan, the 90s, 2000s, after everything was coming.
Again, we just talked about it with Jenny. We knew all of these problems, and then Yuki, this manager, went and sent first Angela, then Jenny, and then Kimmy. And we talked about it in the interview with Kimmy. It was like, come on, you had seen this try and fail 800 times, and you thought it was a good idea.
But also, talking to someone that was one of the lawyers in USFS, that was a lawyer that was involved in committees, right? At that time, they really wanted a high-level medal-winning skater, national champion, to come forward and say that it was true.
They needed a high-profile. I see.
Had that person come forward at the time, anyone had a person of that stature come forward, they would have validated it.
Yeah. But that person almost probably knows that.
Yeah.
Knows that with their testimony or with their story, it would put an end to a career that
and I know
they
a lot of
probably
people,
accredit.
There are a lot of people that are in weird situations where they've come out about other things with the federation, and they might have believed at the time, because of this culture, that they were doing the right thing.
Right.
Even though they know probably it's the wrong thing, right? Like it's, but they were talking about evidence and legal and this and that, and standards are different now than they were in '99, and that has to be addressed too. But this is something. Who knew it? What? When? Come on, this has been for a long time. The fact that wasn't, and why wasn't that person banned? I mean, that is a lawsuit that John Manley is working on. That I think, I would.
Could turn the whole thing upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could turn the whole thing upside down. And you look at things that happened since then, I mean, come on. What safeguards were put in position after that? When things are reported and victims aren't believed. And then they tried to dissuade, and they tried to discredit everyone. And Craig was discredited. But you look at, I think we do have more information now, but we didn't have no information about grooming then. But we do have more information about grooming then. Right? So, anyway, Riley McCusker, gorgeous gymnast. Cara Eaker could work on hitting her ring positions fully, and it's interesting to me that it hasn't been corrected, and that it's the kind of thing where she does have a flaw in her leaps, that she also happens to be very talented, but her routine construction can get an ultimately higher score if she hits this position where her leg is ultimately back and up, and her leg tends to be a little bit lower, and that's either a deduction on every skill or a devaluation of every skill. But it's interesting to me that either the national team staff or her personal coaches haven't either changed the routine or fixed the leap. And that's something that's not necessarily happening, and that's a situation where I think when you're choosing someone to go for a team, this is something that needs to be more discussed. It'll be really interesting to watch the Nationals, and we can do a whole deep dive, separate episode, and really discuss that.
Because I was intrigued by the Canadian team here also. Yeah. Now, we talk about a lot in skating the sound. We don't necessarily, even though all of the networks always put microphones on the ice because they think we want to hear that or something absurd. We ultimately want quiet edges. Yes. How do you feel about the actual volume on the floor during a floor routine?
If you're sitting close enough to a floor, depending on where you are, you will hear it when they punch, more so on the punch necessarily than the landing, because when the athlete is punching the floor to get off on their set, it's the same thing about skating. It's always about the takeoff. The landing is always a reflection of the takeoff, right? And the air position and the air. But the takeoff dictates so much. And then the vault even has to do with the run and the round off more than it even has to do with what starts. Like, everything that you do in terms of basics, comes in. Just like the entrance to the takeoff to the jump is so important. It's similar in gymnastics.
Okay, because the Canadian girls in particular, I was hearing so much thudding on the floor. Yeah,
I mean, you don't want to hear I did thudding, but
and they were all out of bounds all over the place. And a couple of times, who's the new person you had me watch?
Oh, Brooklyn Moore. So I knew that you would like.
Yeah, so. Some very nice moments, but it was interesting to see her get a little dangerously close to the line. And it reminded me of when, I think Nathan used to do this, when he wanted to make sure his hands didn't go on the ice early on. And he'd be like, I'm not touching that. I'm not putting my hand down, even though they almost could have. She looked like she was like on the edge of a building or something for a second. She was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going over this line. Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Now, she's coached by a woman named Elvira Sadi, who is shown in documentaries about gymnastics being incredibly tough, to the point where some would question those methods back in the day. Definite old school Soviet coach, but very talented at the same point. Was a high-level gymnast, Olympic champion herself on teams with Olga Korbut and Ludmila Tereshkova.
Oh, okay.
Because I have given you gymnastics stars to watch, so you will start to get in all of this in context. And that person, very eccentric and very artistically focused, and I think you'll see that still is, her gymnasts are some of the last great artists, I think, of the sport, and doing unusual skills, and that's something that's really interesting.
For being totally honest, I wasn't really as taken with her as I had hoped.
Oh, Brooklyn? No, okay.
Yeah, I was much more into Kara Eager,
yeah.
Kara, yeah, especially on the beam. I just couldn't stand it, how elegant she was, yeah.
Yeah. Ellie Black, not so elegant, but very consistent. So,
consistently not my favorite. Yikes.
I know, and I have a Canadian friend that's so pro-Canadian. It's like, why don't you like her? And I'm like, it's not
because we don't, or I don't.
It's stylistic.
Exactly.
All right, I'm back. Sorry, nature was calling. Anyway, let's discuss the ice, because it is my favorite time of year. We're starting to see new programs by the top skaters, and that's extremely exciting. And new choreography by some of the best, and
some of the less so.
So let's start with Rika Kihira.
Yeah.
I know that this is a smaller ice surface. I respect the fact that she goes out and tries
even in those horrible spotlights, and these spotlights are severe. Like, there is pitch blackness or spotlight, whereas sometimes even when we were doing the World Pro and stuff, there was still a base light that was on that I think must change a lot. Yeah.
So, I don't know what your feeling is, but is it good that she's going out and failing and falling as many times as we did see her fail in this program? Is it good that she just went out there and did the program and got a first one under her belt?
Let's analyze it, Dave.
Because here's the thing. She's struggling a bit, right? Like, there's
a bit, and I think that it would be effective for her to be doing that if she was someone who shied away and popped.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like certain skaters that are just get chicken and pop out on certain elements, then yes, it would be so important for them to go for it and try every single time. But that's not necessarily her problem. She has had some pop issues, but a lot of her triple axel issues from the last season didn't involve a lack of trying.
Yeah.
She put forth that effort and fell. But like the second triple axel fall here looked painful. Like when she slammed right down on her hip, I thought, oh my gosh, you're going to hurt yourself.
So one of the things that I believe that an experience performing in front of an audience in Japan can really benefit skaters. The way Champions on Ice it puts you out and you learn how to relate to an audience, and it teaches you that skill of performance. And I believe that we were seeing classic IJS moments, and it's even more glaring when you watch it under a spotlight, as you could see when Rika was engaging with the music and when she wasn't. You watch her set up into that first triple axel, and she shuts off and goes technical. And that's all skaters, by the way, in this system. But it was so apparent of this mechanical, robotic skating that has come out of the IJS that is really difficult, I think, to engage with for many people.
Well, because even as you said that, like, I thought, well, maybe what if she watered down all the content so she really could focus on just projecting and schmacting and all of this sort of stuff. But then I suppose if you're not practicing at having to do both at the same time, it seems like you truly have to pick one or the other. But right now she just picks one or the other incrementally throughout the program. So understandably so, but...
When Nathan was first doing all of the quads and becoming a top skater, in the 2016-2017 season, I remember that program was designed to have a couple moments of performance and a lot of skate jump, skate jump, skate jump. But I really feel that the more and more we've watched him, he's become comfortable performing, comfortable of letting maybe that more stereotypical feminine side of yourself, your artistic sense, that the yin and the yang energy. He's become more open as a person, right? And that's helped him.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would help her to scale back. Because Zagitova even was doing her program, but she wasn't doing the triple combination. She was just doing a triple Lutz and just going for that and being successful with the program and putting it out. And I wonder about the strategy with Rika, if it's really the best.
Yeah, because again, is she someone who is shying away in big moments and needs to be encouraged to always attempt? But I don't think that actually is her issue.
We do know that she's training hard enough right now that she can go out and do a long program. And I didn't think work ethic was her problem. It seems intense. It seems intense that she was at the Worlds and is ready now to be doing that. Because I remember talking with Megan about Kayla LeDuc, and she's like, well, they really shouldn't be doing the long right now in competition.
Because it's too early if they want to be doing it when they want to be doing it. Yeah.
Because you have to peak, and she is getting older by every season, and that'll become more of a thing over time. So I'll be really curious what happens with her this season. I think she'll have a good season. I'm not predicting a bad season, but...
My favorite part of her choreography is this part.
She does and then she has a little arm section. Yeah. I think she's someone who's very intense, who needs a little bit more of the modern in her to just unwind and just be.
And that's the thing. I was trying to think if I liked this program or not, and it was a bit. Remember when Christina Gau did? I thought she kind of had a shot if she wanted at the beginning of that 13-14 season for that third Olympic spot. But she did that Angels and Demons programs that was so abrasive and not her. And this feels a little heavy for Rika.
I do think it's designed in a way, like her program last year. If she lands the jumps, I think this program will be elevated.
Okay.
However, I don't think that she's naturally on her own artistic.
I agree. Lovely skater.
Yes.
But needs something maybe a little more effervescent and charming to carry it consistently.
I think she is probably so single-minded about the technical that it is hard to get her to engage. And this system does reward that. We see very few clean programs, and when we do, they're going to get the components. However, you're against the Atari girls. They are stereotypically more consistent, and you will have to deliver. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think that this program will be better if she lands the jumps. I think she could be a rather complete skater. She does have good skating skills. She's just not naturally an actress.
Emotive in the same way as some of the others are. Yeah, exactly. Even like Zagitova with all of her fame now and all of the shows she's doing, you can see a bit more personality for sure.
She has a vulnerability about her that's really intriguing.
Rika does, or Zagitova.
Zagitova. I see no vulnerability in Rika. I see Slay.
Yeah, I was like...
I see someone who is coming to do her technical job.
Land some jumps,
But I do see more of an emotional vulnerability from Zagitova that we haven't necessarily seen through all of her programs in the past, but I see it. Unfortunately, I absolutely abhor this Mavoy music.
Yeah, it's another miss. It's another miss.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's not on her. I think that's on her team because I see her grow as a person too. And as you have more sense of self, you can communicate that.
Yeah.
And I think she's capable of doing that. She just needs a better vehicle to do it.
I thought the dress was beautiful. I thought her skating looked better.
The Lutz was pretty nice on its own.
I would like her to hold out those moves, the Ina Bauer, the spot. Like, let her just be a grand Olympic champion, right?
Right.
She is. Let her be. You don't need all of this busyness. She's going to get the points anyway. And frankly, a more...
Let a moment land.
Yeah, let a moment land and be the Olympic champion, and people are going to respond to you.
Right.
More is not always more. Like, that's... And I really think that she needs to learn how to skate in the moat and just be on the ice and not all this busyness, because it doesn't add up to anything.
Because what happens is that busyness doesn't allow her to completely finish a pose. Yeah. Like, if she could just go a couple degrees further back with her head and a second longer, our eye catches it and it's sort of a, whoa, nice move there, instead of, whoa, wait, what, whoa, oh, triple Lutz, oh, God, yeah.
If I were coaching her, which I'm not, thank God, my strategy as a coach manager, if I'm John Nixing the situation, go for the musicality, go for the skating skills, go for consistency. I don't expect her to get a quad. I want to keep her healthy because she's had injuries over the past.
Right.
Get the jumps fully rotated.
And you'll be right there. You'll be right there. Over someone with inconsistent quads who they are going to be reluctant to give PCS to.
Who doesn't deserve the PCS, and make the judges see the difference in your skating versus theirs, and force the conversation about how much of a differentiation should exist between you and the juniors.
Yeah, agreed.
And she could,
but hard when you're all in the same camp, because you're all pulling the same. They're all pulling from
resources.
The same playbook. Yeah.
And that's a situation that they have to really look at. So, is this helping her? So.
It's one thing when it's three girls sort of, coming up at the same time, but now you have this person here, but you're still giving them that material.
Yeah. I mean, it was better than some of the material, perhaps, but I thought the music was hard to listen to.
Yeah, that was a tough go.
Yeah, I think I asked on Facebook, do you like the music? Always a sign that I don't, by the way, if I ask that.
Yeah.
How about Nathan?
So, okay, first of all, this is not La Boheme of the Opera of Persuasion, which we have learned. You know what it is? He's doing some very...
What is this? What is this from?
I don't understand. I don't understand what it is. Someone sent us exactly what it is and all this sort of stuff, but
what is the
I don't... Yeah. Well, it kind of has a funky, edgier, too cool for school kind of thing going on.
That's Nathan. He wants to, wiggle his arms. And
but that's it. But you know what? He wiggles them this way.
Yeah.
He doesn't wiggle them that way. And that's... I'm missing some of that openness. Wow, even as I sit up straight for the first time in this recording, I'm like, I feel alive. It's a lot of cool movements that's almost done fully extended and with a lot of time. There are great ideas. He's going to dance it. It's going to be great. I just wish it wasn't so this way. And this is, it denies us. It shuts us out a little bit.
You know what I would love to see Nathan do? Because he is in the midst of a battle with Hanyu. Allegedly, Hanyu may be repeating programs this season.
Okay.
As many as two. But he's been so single-mindedly focused on the jumps. It's not 100%, but it is
a very strong possibility.
Very strong possibility, right? Because he has been working on everything. There are stories of him doing quints in the harness, right? Like, he is single-mindedly giving it all this season, and then we'll decide if he's going to go for the Olympics or not. Because he's not going to do it if he's not going to be going for the gold. Nathan needs to...
Could you imagine that narrative?
I know.
If he had 3 gold Olympic medals, I mean,
he could do
him and Sonia, he absolutely could.
We're getting close to the point where it's like, he could do it.
Yeah.
So, Nathan needs to be watching what Hanyu is doing. And then he also needs to see, where can I really improve and get the most points? Right. I think his skating skills, he has a performance quality. Hanyu has this superstar confidence that he's really getting.
An energy, like an aura about him that says, I'm a star. Yeah.
Nathan has really developed that swagger, but I would like to see his skating be bigger. It's still a little bit smaller to me.
And that's the thing. This whole in thing creates smaller movement.
I would like him to study Paul Wiley. Look at how short.
I was just going to say, yeah. Or
the
even
great
Brian.
Paul Wiley, okay?
Yeah.
He was like 5'2" and just could fit in your pocket, and he skated bigger than everyone, right?
Exactly.
And
with
Nathan,
this broad, open feeling.
Nathan needs a Paul Wiley spread eagle. That, boom! Like,
but in a way, someone like Hanyu and Nathan, they're so much slighter than Brian or Paul ever were actually up here. So I don't know if they feel like it doesn't look as strong
It'll
to
look
like
strong.
dominate it.
It'll look so much better. His spread eagles to me always look a little bit
like he's holding on to that edge.
Like
it doesn't look.
It doesn't look as like, you know, like it's Paul Wiley was like giving us energy, right?
With a full edge, yeah.
And even have Paul just come skate with you, just come visit you, and Rafa isn't there, and like just work on like your overall interpretive big skating.
Open, yeah.
And your performance, because he has confidence that could be taken next level, right? And I think that as we watch Hanyu and Nathan Chen battle it out, he needs some more Shoma Uno in him. He needs some more Paul Wiley. He needs some more like, I am the best goddamn skater in the world, and I'm going to skate with it. And I'm seeing here like I may be the best jumper in the world, but I don't know that he's the best skater in the world. And he needs some of that.
Yeah, because right now some of the presentational mantra seems to be like, I'm fun. I'm having fun, and you're having fun watching me.
And I think he is,
which is a part of that performance projection. But there's another level underneath that could be achieved.
He needs that Tarasova intensity.
It's true.
Yeah, and I think that will make all the difference in the world in his skating. And because I think it's there. You can see that it's growing, and that he's someone with all the shows he's done. He sold out crowds in Japan and Korea and all, at these big competitions.
And seems to be kind of a competitor favorite. Like, I think he seems like fun backstage, and we see him feel at ease with himself, like you're saying, that totally feeds into that performance factor. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think having someone visit him a couple of times and try to give him tips on just like little things that could take it so far and make such a difference.
I think there are subtle changes. I don't think it's like a rehaul or or an overhaul.
Because in reality, these elements take up so much time that your actual skating that we're judging you on is very slight.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And there are some moments that you could really do it in this program. Like a couple of cool slide stops, like that kind of stuff that you could make just that much bigger.
Just visit Michelle. Just be like...
Yeah.
But that's the kind of fine-tuning, I think, that he really needs. To help interpret these programs. But I like his short. I'm not in love with it yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. There's potential.
There is potential. Yeah. I see this, like, swag developing, but come on, Nathan. It is time. We have seen that you can do the jumps. We have seen you grow as a performer, but now it's time to really next level that.
Well, and we can see that you can move and dance this way.
Yeah.
Now we want it that way.
In the electric, you go forward and then you go back. And
absolutely.
Well, speaking of someone who is boogie woogieing, Karen Chen is looking much better than we have seen her in years.
Oh my gosh, what a moment for her.
Fully rotated, triple toe on the back end of a combo. First jump might have been questionable. Second jump was not. It was bam, backwards.
Yeah.
Pair of bands,
Exquisite. Beautiful spins. I had all but forgotten what a wonderful spinner she is. Incredible speed through the position changes. Hits beautiful extension in those positions. I mean, and this is why we knew she was never going to Russia, because we didn't see any of this at this point last year. And when we saw that she was going to be on the Grand Prix and she was going to be continuing, we thought, well, we'll believe it once we see her doing these kinds of events. And here she is, and she's delivering at a very high level.
Yeah. We've had a lot of questions about what will happen when she goes to Cornell, but what we're seeing now is right now she is very trained. And the one thing that I have to say is that she looks to be skating with a lot of joy and ownership of her skating.
On her terms, maybe a little bit. Maybe it's that age thing.
I wonder if she came back because she really wanted to, right? She had a rough past 2 seasons where her career really fell apart. And I think in a lot of levels. She had the Olympics that were a disaster. I think professionally became a disaster after that with the boots and everything that came along with that. Then last year she was not, she was injured, and then she was not in competitive form, and then, all of this stuff happened. She's gotten it together. And I think a lot of people didn't know that we would ever see Karen back, to this.
Honestly, point. I'm gonna eat my words, because I didn't see this happening. And just see it happen. I mean, we got some glimpses of it earlier, but to see it in action here in Philadelphia was amazing. Also, we got to talk about this rink. Can you take down your Christmas decorations? Dear Lord, they had like old garland and like nasty little snowmen on the thing. I was like, have some respect. Like Karen Chen just gave you like a real nice product here. Give her a nice venue in which to do it. Clean the damn place. Oh my gosh.
It is a really nice Olympic-sized rink, but I do agree with you.
Yeah, some easy switches could make that such a classier event, I feel.
So, I know, it has bleachers and everything. It's like...
I know, and then we were seeing some cell phone footage of some of the programs, and through the hockey glass, and there's this item, like people would do like a flying sit spin, and there was this giant message on the glass that said, watch for flying objects, or something.
So you know that this is the famous rink where it used to say, watch for flying pucks, and everyone would like pull the
get rid of that
middle part of the P every year.
Get it? Yeah, okay.
So
this isn't the one that was also the Humane Society, was it?
No, that's a different rink. This is in Astor, PA.
That's one of the funniest ones to me.
Yeah.
It's the Humane Society and Ice Arena.
It's a different rink in Philadelphia. I've never been there, but that one actually, apparently, I think there's a lot of historic skating stuff. I think the Philadelphia...
Oh, it was a very important arena.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in school in Philly, I used to skate at the class of 1923 Ice Arena. They're full of weird names out there because it was at Penn. Yeah, okay.
I love a nice B city like Philadelphia. Oh, it's like being hot in Cleveland. You can be hot in Philly, right? I love it.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't tell anyone from Philly who just referred to it as a B city, but I gotcha.
If they didn't know it was a B city, come on, honey. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I lived there briefly, and I loved it. I liked it much more than New York.
I enjoyed my time in Philly very much.
I think New York is too nasty and, like, egos, and people in Philly were more fun, okay?
Okay.
I'd much rather be hot in Cleveland, okay? Than miserable
with Betty White. Yeah.
Than miserable and single in New York, okay?
Okay.
People are.
Wow, I can't help but take that personally, Dave.
What'd you say?
I can't help but feel that was directly about me.
You used to live in Philly, and you do part of the time.
Yeah.
And which city do you think has a nicer vibe?
Well, now of where I am in New York, I kind of like the vibe there. It depends. See, the thing is, New
not
York
when
is
you
so
go to
expensive.
the gas station a couple blocks away, though. Like you're.
Well, I never told you to go there. I don't consider that my neighborhood at all. Just saying. Okay.
Just saying. All right. Well.
Some of the other girls, though, Hannah. Hannah's an interesting one for me.
Great jumper.
Pardon?
Great jumper.
Great jumper at times. Sometimes she gets this incredible lift and trajectory in those jumps, and it's just magical. Other times, I don't know, it looked like I was talking to someone about the loop, like maybe the legs weren't quite together on the takeoff, or she wasn't quite low enough on other takeoffs, because then for these great jumpers, when they miss the jumps, then we're sort of stuck here. I'm not sure what's left. She's intriguing enough. I'll still be intrigued to see how it goes for her this season. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can say the same about Star. That was if there was Zalame in that program, I didn't really understand it. And she has like a good way about her movement, but it just, I mean, the loops were very scary here.
The short girls need, like, there's something missing in all of their development, right? Like
kind of a solidified technique. It seemed a lot of winging it technique to me. I don't know anyone felt super secure in their plans, technically.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is, right? For all Hannah, you can see that the skating skills need work. Star, there's an inherent star quality there. I mean, the girl was named Star, right? But
for a reason, yeah.
And she's willing to sing her own music and do these kind of fun, campy things that skating is all about. So,
right.
But the technique is sometimes not quite there.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But I have to say, let's talk about the men.
Okay, but really quick, Young Yu.
Oh, she won. Yes, she narrowly beat Karen. Didn't do the triple axel, but looks solid.
Well, attempted it in the short, right? And then popped it. I'm assuming she was going for it because you saw her delay and kind of...
I think this rivalry with Eunsoo is going to be really interesting because I didn't think Eunsoo looked good at all.
And these jumps outside of that popped axel, I mean, they're pretty beautiful in the air.
But Eunsoo, it looks like the training, we see videos of her training in Korea at the rink, which is definitely not in California, even though without Ice Network we don't have that article to,
to verify.
To verify and like write exactly what happened and when. But I think these skaters battling it out is really exciting. Because I think it'll push them both to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued what's going to happen this season. I mean, more people doing triple axels. I mean, you can tell where the sport is going. It is not get to triple Lutz and stop anymore.
Right.
By any stretch of the imagination. And that's exciting. But I did want to say about the men. I feel like we saw some moments and glimpses of real maturity from Andrew Torgashev that we've been waiting for.
Dave, I had a moment with him. Again, I mean, we knew, I mean, you alerted me to him first, and we're like, we're watching this one. He's got a thing. And of course, it was like kind of veering all over the place and took a while to really see that play out. But here, there was an elegance, there was a presence, and the jumps, I think, are much stronger than I've ever seen them before. Do we think that will translate to a consistent season technically? I don't know if we're there yet, but it definitely seems in the right direction. I was very taken. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed him, whereas before I would look at him and say, I'm supposed to like him because I guess he has a lot of potential.
But whereas style and the spins
of it. Oh my gosh, it was dripping in style. I loved it.
And that brings us to the person that I wish would be making this transformation, is Camden.
And Torgashev, I was like, well, good, I got Torgashev because I think I might have to abandon Camden.
Camden has switched coaches, and I think is at the point, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but I think it's at that point where he's like old teens, young 20s, where he has to decide and take ownership of his skating and decide whether he's going to be a champion or just a kid who skates. Because I think there's an element when all of these people around the same age, young college, train together in Colorado, where there's a social aspect of this, right? There's a social aspect where they all train together and are friends and competitors and whatever, but are you determined to win? And do you need to move to another environment to win? Do you need to find an inward focus? Do you need to decide to win? Because he has the choreography, he has the talent, and he's making mistakes that he should not be making. And
consistently, like we're to a point now, and I know he changed coaches, but it's not really as much of a change as one would have hoped because
he's moving across the boards in the ring, literally.
Truly, and I think that part of when you switch coaches is you've changed environments, you've changed choreographers, you've changed off ice, you're doing all these new things, and this just in a way seems a whole bunch more of the same.
I want to use the word maturity in a way of like needs to decide this is my career, this is what I want to do, because the door is open. We have to be really clear. There are two spots that are probably sewn up on the world team for the men, which would be Nathan and Vincent, should they be trained and healthy, right? Jason, God love him, lovely skater.
But he's vulnerable. He's vulnerable.
Vulnerable and hanging on, right? Like, I don't think the quads are going to happen. We hear the same stuff every year. He was learned that technique, that Lucy technique that's going to be really hard to undo, right? It's just really challenging. You've got Tomoki, who has a lot of great qualities, doesn't have a body of history of consistency, but has the potential to really...
And a smidge of momentum working in his favor. Yeah.
But I'm getting the sense maybe he's not carrying it over to the fall. Maybe, he has to find that again. I really think Camden is the one with this Caruso music and everything that needs to be getting it together, and he's like not getting it done. And
he's completely letting it slip out of his hands.
And I think it's entirely about Camden and entirely about what he's going to do. So
I think, and it's interesting because then we've got Krasnozhan, who did make a change. I think for the positive, like. Again, I don't think he's ever in any danger of winning any artistry awards, but his vocabulary of movement has changed a little bit, and you see they're working an angle, and they're trying to, but he's another one. It's all forward. all of the
Forward,
artistry
looking down.
happens forward. Yeah. But there's a strength to his presence.
Yeah.
I think he's very commanding on the ice. But again, I would love to see Torgashev emerge. Someone has to emerge out of this kind of middle group, and I hope it's him. He seems to be.
They're middling, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But you know who is emerging? Is the adorable, charming, effervescent Donovan Carrillo, who... No, I mean, he really is blossoming.
Yeah.
And charming and a
has
fan
always
favorite.
been a fan favorite, even when he's like, 11th at 4 continents or something.
Andale, okay? I am
yeah.
this.
There's an inherent adoration that the crowd will give him. Having said that, I wonder if he's found his true performance niche yet.
No.
I don't think
there needs to be
swing
better
music
coaching,
is quite it.
better coaching and choreography and funding.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding support him. I don't think that there's a ton of money there, but there's a ton of talent. So
And kind of vision. I think, okay, we've got this thing where he's an unexpected fan favorite. He's earned it, but it's a little surprising in its own way. And go run with it. Be that person. Be the Lucinda Rue. Be that person that we just all love who may not be anywhere near the medals. But I think if he packages it right, he could really get a lot of endorsements, a lot of tour invites.
He needs a good YouTube channel and
yes,
a good Patreon where we could support his skating and watch his updates and training updates.
Yeah.
And people would get behind it and really support him. And then we could fund the better coaches and the consistent.
Right.
Because they keep bringing in a different top level coach of the week into Mexico, but
that's not how it's gonna. These are band-aids. Then it's like someone who needs to arc with him. Yeah.
And then looking at the dance in Lake Placid.
And Lake Placid, which did seem like an appropriate arena. Who knew people were coming, so they got it all dolled up.
I thought that Lorraine McNamara and Quinn Carpenter, I always forget which first name goes with which last name. Not a great sign,
right.
But I think this year we're going to learn it because the program was better.
It was lovely. It wasn't. I said it was soft, if maybe a little boring.
But I thought that it was bigger skating than they usually do, more cohesive, more vision, more speed, more knee
a lot of
bend.
lyricism. Yeah, beautiful lines.
And I've gotten the vibe that Hawaiian and Baker evolved. Last season that looked...
Oh, I agree with you 100%. A move can be made among these teams right now. This is it.
And in the past, I didn't think that this team could challenge them, and now I'm thinking that Caitlin and Jean-Luc need to step it up.
And they have some original moves that really stuck out. Some very unique elements to the free dance that made you think, they could do this, because unfortunately Hawaii and Baker aren't necessarily, in my opinion, receiving some of the most original material from Montreal. Yeah. They're kind of sort of doing a more general thing. Now, obviously, I have not seen their free dance yet for this year,
no.
Hawaii and Baker. But I went ahead and watched their rhythm dance too, which was very confusing to me because it was just a full-blown flamenco, and I was confused as to what operetta or musical theater piece that was from. It seemed real shoehorn. I'm sure it's from something, and some fan will be like, well, you don't know, it's the blah, blah, blah. But it seemed like it's a cop-out.
Yeah. They're
just doing a generic flamenco number. And she looks very orthodox. It's very high neck, very unsexual front to the dress. And then it's got a nice open back, but it was a miss, the rhythm dance. Now, I have a new favorite team.
Who?
I think it's weird. You're probably going to think it's weird. I kind of was really into Green and Parsons. Does that make you
I thought they looked like they have so much potential. They're new and a lot to work on, and she's kind of almost as tall as... He's real short. How short is he? He could fit in your pocket, too.
Yeah.
But I got the vibe that there was a lot of good potential coming, even though there's, an age difference that's maybe problematic, that it was promising.
Yeah, and I don't know, obviously there was some trouble with the sibling partnership, and she was ready to get out, and things weren't going great for her, but I've never seen him skate so big and fast. It seems like now they can let him free. There was something very cool about their look. There was something very, very awesome about some of their moves and the free dance. It was very interesting choreographically. It kept my attention the whole time, and it was just big and powerful. I don't know. I was very energized by seeing them. So I hope they become like a very strong option. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see what happens. And they're new, so let's see what happens by January come Nationals time.
No, I love Montreal. I love their style.
Of course.
I'm worried about some of the taste level, although there's a fun factor. But sex bomb and a free dance, Jonathan, like that is this competitive? Caroline and Shane, the Suisse.
Oh yes.
The end.
When they started with Tom Jones, though, I was like, all right.
I'm into it. You know what? They have really clean skating and good skating skills. They need way more speed, but they look 10,000 times better than they've looked the last 2 seasons, where it looks like they at least have a vision, right?
And what they're giving me is what I love the most that Montreal comes up with are these innovative moments. Yeah. So there were rotational, like there was a spin,
rotational lift.
Yes, and then there's also the
stationary lift that spins. Oh, the dance spin.
Yeah. Okay. And that they were way down in the middle of the program, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then he's squatting and she's upside down in like an Underhill Martini kind of moment, like at the end of their thing. It was all very vintage and Canadian, but yet fresh and exciting. I don't know. They were keeping my interest. The program works for me in a way.
I'm really concerned that Marie-France had a moment when she was watching like Michael J. Fox go to the prom with that girl and the song came on, because a lot of their programs out of Canada seem to have the "What do you think?" thing going on.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's a little bit
a bellowing baritone of some sort. Yeah.
A little dated, but
yeah.
And I need you to explain, because you're in the opera and there's a lot of like Pagliacci clowns going on. What in the God?
Excuse me. Well, don't blame that on us. We had nothing to do with this clown situation. But first of all, we're going to start with the Smart and Diaz rhythm dance.
To Greece.
And it was full-blown, like, talent show.
Full-blown talent show, Olivia Newton-John, camel toe, like, full-on performance.
One of the most misogynistic, worst messages to ever send to women was the movie Grease, where it's like, just mortgage your entire self-identity to be with a douchebag guy. Like, horrible message.
But she looked so hot at the end, didn't she?
Olivia Newton-John?
She was like, tell me about it, stud.
Yeah, but you know who is a stud?
Not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was all about him in this short dance.
I was going to say not John Travolta.
Oh, not John Travolta, please. No. But Adria, like when he got into that opening, like thing down on the ice, and like I was having a moment, as if we weren't already jealous of Madison because she got to skate with Zach. Now she's got to go home to him. She's really got the best of both worlds here. Like, she
doesn't have to twizzle with him, so it's the best of every world, you know?
Bingo. Because, oh my gosh, did he look good? But yes, what happens in the twizzle is I'm missing, because I want to root for them.
I know.
And I was trying to hone in on what's missing for me, and I think it's a sharpness that I want, a crispness and a speed from them.
They just make me want to yell real loud, okay? Like,
yeah, it looks like it's like they're marking it. Like it's a little like, yeah, we'll do this here, and
she's on that vacay before, and they're competing so soon. Well, yeah. Stop vacating. We saw every moment of her damn vacation to Greece.
It was a very chronicled vacation.
Did you actually enjoy any of the scenery? Did you see any of it? Yeah.
Right. And there was one moment that's built in, and maybe they will grow it throughout the season, obviously, knowing this is a first iteration. But when they're saying, how low can you go? And I thought, well, this is a legitimate question, because she was barely leaning back, and he was barely squatting in the moment. Like, come on, don't invite us to look at that and then not go lower. Come on. But yeah, it's a technical thing I'm missing from them.
Yes, it's a speed and a precision
precision. That's the right word. Yeah.
And what is the clown situation, and why clowns, and what are we doing with the clowns?
And again, for as attracted to him as I was at this event, for him to come out in like Grimace from McDonald's, like purple suspenders, it did not.
It was very Stars on Ice 1999 for me.
And she's gorgeous, but she was so understated. I didn't understand it. It wasn't quite a story. It looked like already with Peshala and Borza, you know, like sometimes you get a funky thing. It looks like the poor man's Peshala Borza kind of.
But I feel like the successful element of any French program is like you have to think that drugs were involved in the creation of it, right? And like I felt like this
should be involved in the viewing of it because I didn't get it.
This was very sober to me. Like this was a sober person trying to be edgy, and that was a problem, right?
Yeah. Well, it seems like sometimes when these quirky but magical programs happen,
like when Natalie is portraying the flower in like Le Petit Prince.
Yeah, but it starts from a thing and it becomes. I think they were chasing an artistic moment instead of kind of finding it naturally. And it almost had a farcical kind of Rockamo Coco.
I'm just really nervous about the season. You know Tim Coletto and the wife are giving us Dreamgirls. And you know it's coming. And, you know, a white guy giving us, like, Jennifer Hudson. I'm nervous.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I'm not going to see that. Yeah.
And I'm telling you. I mean, I'm concerned, but not nervous.
There is some, like if they do one night only or
it's all I have to give. I mean, like,
do you remember that old NBC promo, We Are a Family, with Nell Carter and B. Arthur and the Facts of Life people, where they all come out of it?
We are a family.
Yeah. It's
like the Gabois theme song, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
so we'll see a few. I also watched Carrera and Ponomarenko.
To me, they're like solid, better, but they need more speed, more attack, and more just.
I'm telling you, in that second group, sort of, I'm really looking for Green and Parsons. I'm intrigued to see how this unfolds for them throughout the season. I couldn't find their rhythm dance. Yeah. I'd be very intrigued to see it. But I love the free dance. I think a lot of potential there.
So yeah, we want to know, which free dance are you getting behind? Who's middling for you, and who's making a claim, going for that pewter, going for that bronze? We want to know. Leave us in the comments below, and which gymnast are you responding to, and what's your take on these rhythm dances from Gabois that are being very campy with some of this material? Are they scaring the bejesus out of you? Because we know what's coming for other teams.
The bejesus Christ superstar out of you. Maybe someone's doing that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I saw Brigadoon last night, Jonathan.
Oh, you only see it every 16 years, Dave.
100. Anyway, the girl was wonderful. The guy was awful. They didn't match entirely. It was watching like a lot of these pair teams in the U.S. I was like, oh.
Just saying.
It was
like, and some of the dance teams.
Hold an etch and look sexy.